Thanks for staying with us. Researchers are really excited to share news of what they've described as a critical milestone in human safety trials in the development of a malaria vaccine. Their report is published in the journal Science Translational Medicine, which explains that a genetically modified form of malaria that was unable to cause a full infection in people. The trial suggested it was safe and generated a good immune response. The malaria parasite goes through multiple stages built in mosquitoes and inside the human body. The team at the Center for Infectious Disease Research in Seattle deleted 3 genes from the parasite so it could not infect liver cells. The idea is that infecting people with the weakened parasite will expose the immune system to malaria, but the parasite will not be able to complete its life cycle to cause the disease. 10 people took part in the safety trials. No one went on to develop the disease, and there were no severe side effects to the treatment. Dr. Musa Obadiah, the director of the Taraba Project Implementation on HIV/AIDS Response, joins us now to talk more on this. What do you make of the recent findings?
Hello? Sorry.
Dr. Musa, what do you make of the recent findings on a vaccine, a possible vaccine for malaria?
Sorry, it's not quite getting you well because of the network. Could you?
Dr. Musa, we're asking that what do you make of the recent findings on the GM malaria vaccine?
Sorry.
Okay, we'll reconnect with Dr. Obadiah in a moment. But the president or residents of Togo's capital, Lomé, have welcomed a move by the government to import cleaner fuel into the country. Togo is one of 5 African nations that announced a ban on importation of fuels with high levels of sulfur from European manufacturers that are exploiting weak regulatory policies in the West African region.
Togo recently announced that it will ban the importation of dirty fuels from European manufacturers after a recent report revealed the European companies have been exploiting the weak regulatory policies in the West African region to export fuels with high levels of sulfur. Togo joins Nigeria, Benin, Ghana and Ivory Coast, all of whom agreed on the import ban of fossil fuels with high levels of sulfur. The World Health Organization considers sulfur particles emitted by diesel engines as one of the major contributors to air pollution. Studies have shown that sulfur is responsible for a number of health conditions, including heart disease, lung cancer and respiratory illnesses such as asthma or bronchitis.
We must forbid that. It is also risky and it is dangerous for the people. That is a very good decision because toxic fuel causes too much damage.
In Togo, many have backed the decision, especially those who say their cars have been damaged by toxic fuel.
We often have to change the engines which are damaged by the toxic fuel, which is the fuel that is used here. And all of this really affects our work. People often have to change their car engines because of the damage, and when you change a new car's engine with an old one, you have to put an engine that supports the fuel that is used from here. That's the problem.
Air pollution can be a problem in the heavy traffic typical with some of Africa's biggest metropolises. In September last year, a BBC report criticized 5 Swiss firms for their involvement in the exportation and sale of dirty fuels in Africa, even though their sulfur levels were considered too toxic for European markets.
With that decision, we will be more watchful and insist that the government respects this commitment, because it's one thing to make that decision, it's another to implement it. We must also establish checkpoints and a better monitoring system to control the quality of fuel that is imported and that comes through at the airport, as well as the petrol stations and in the distribution of fuel.
Outside of West Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda and Morocco have all increased fuel quality requirements in recent years. But better quality drives up costs. And with many nations facing severe shortages in public finances, analysts say they are wary of angering people with higher pump prices.
And let's continue the conversation with Dr. Musa Obadiah, the Director of the Taraba Project Implementation and HIV Response, to talk to us about the possible genetically modified malaria vaccine. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
It's good to have you. What do you make of this recent findings?
Yeah, the recent findings is a serious breakthrough in the control of malaria. As you're aware, it's one of the major killer disease in our own environment, a cause of morbidity and mortality, especially among the vulnerable groups like children under 5, the pregnant women, and those with low immune status. So if we are able to, the vaccine is able to be distributed effectively, certainly it will go a long way in reducing morbidity and mortality rates across the country. At the same time, it will translate to improve economic status as money being expended in medical care, and then the fact that the man-hour that is lost from labor will also be reduced. And that will be a serious breakthrough in Africa because malaria appears to be what is really causing a serious setback in our healthcare services.
So with this development now, do we really agree that we could be close enough to that vaccine for malaria?
Pardon?
With this recent development, does it mean that we're really close to finding a vaccine for malaria?
Certainly. For now, the indicators are that we're close to the target. But in medicine, we're usually slow in making such declaration, and it has gone through a series of clinical trials. Like I said, the last stage of the clinical trial is quite promising. But after that, we need to subject it to another rigorous process of verification before we declare to the entire world the efficacy of the vaccine.
Okay, so does this mean that it's totally possible to eradicate malaria, especially in this region?
Oh, possible. Yes, with the vaccine being very effective, and if the coverage is optimum level, that is from 90% and above, then we are likely.
Dr. Musa Obadiah, the Director of the Project Implementation on HIV/AIDS, thank you for talking to us on Network Africa. And with that, we've come to the end of the show today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I am BC Adebayo.